Today on Commander Replay, we're gonna find out what happens when everything goes wrong. Can Licia Sanguine Tribune deal with the awfulness that is Grand Arbiter Augustin IV? Find out next on Six Sad World. Alright, welcome back. Playing some Licia Sanguine Tribune, or Licia Sanguine Tribune, or Licia Sanguine Tribune. Take your pick on the pronunciation. I have no idea which one's right. I'm just going to go with Licia throughout this video. Let's take a look at our opening hand. We have one land and a Serra Ascendant. Serra Ascendant is very powerful on turn 1, but this hand is otherwise not good. We need to mulligan this guy. Alright, we have a couple lands. We have an Ajani's Pridemate, Sword. Alright, I like this much better. If we don't draw lands for 2 or 3 turns with the last hand, then we literally just don't play Magic. So, we should at least get to play some Magic with this hand. Alright, so our turn 1, we'll play the Windswept Heath, and we'll go find something that comes into play tapped. We have black and white in our hand. We'll get a Sacred Foundry. So let's take a look at what our opponents are playing. So there's a Grand Arbiter Augustin IV, is 2 a white and a blue for a 2/3. White spells you cast cost 1 less, blue spells you cast cost 1 less, spells your opponents cast cost 1 more. So usually a control-heavy sort of deck where they're going to look to tax people out of the game and just make life difficult for everyone. So the irony is you don't see Grand Arbiter that much anymore, and I already filmed another video today where I also faced Grand Arbiter, which that'll be up on the channel for you guys to see, and it was actually a pretty intense game. Anyway, kind of weird that I'm seeing Grand Arbiter twice in the same day. Wonder if it's the same player, didn't catch their name. Actually, I think it's a different player now that I'm thinking about it. Play the Scrubland and play our Ajani's Pridemate. Next up for our opponents, we have Progenitus, is white, white, blue, blue, black, black, red, red, green, green for a 10/10 that has protection from everything, and if it will be put into its graveyard from anywhere, reveal it and shuffle it into its owner's library. So this could be any sort of crazy 5-color deck. Who knows what's going to happen. I've seen some players go with the Maze's End combo in Progenitus, so we'll really just have to be prepared for anything, and we'll have to be careful because once Progenitus comes down, it's really difficult to deal with, so that is a thing. Next up, we have Mitra, God of Harvest, which is 3 a green and a white for a 6/7. It's indestructible, is not a creature if your devotion to white and green is less than 7. And whenever you cast a creature spell, you may search your library for a forest or plains, put it onto the battlefield tap. So most people play Enchantress with Mitra, but Mitra is really, really powerful, and when Mitra goes off, they'll have like 10 or 15 lands on like turn 6. So we'll need to be careful about that. Back to our turn, we draw a Sword of Fire and Ice. I think right here I'm going to play the Burnished Heart. That gives us the best chance to keep hitting our lands, which I like. Oh, Grand Arbiter's down. Never mind. Taxed! No Burnished Heart for us. That's unfortunate. Well, in the meantime, might as well swing in at Mitra. In terms of power level, Mitra is probably the one that scares me a little bit more. With Progenitus, I don't actually know what's coming, so it makes it hard to evaluate. Grand Arbiter is really annoying, but not necessarily the most powerful. It doesn't end the game super quickly for the most part. It is just really difficult to play around and play through, though. But I've definitely lost to Mitra plenty of times where they just get millions and millions of lands, so we'll get in with the light pokes. Maybe we'll spread it around, hit Progenitus next, we'll see. We're really hoping we draw into a land on our next turn. Chromatic Lantern for the Progenitus opponent. Merchant Scroll for the Grand Arbiter. Oh, we draw a land. Oh my god. Alright. Land. I don't know if I've ever been this happy to see land. So we will play the Burnished Heart. And just so we don't immediately start a blood feud, we'll go in at the Progenitus opponent. Give the appearance that we're spreading around the damage. Progenitus is doing pretty good on, they've made all their lands. Looks like they've got a lot of colored mana, and they've also got this Chromatic Lantern. So Progenitus keeps hitting all their lands. So they're kind of ahead right now just because this game is going to be all about making all of your land drops. And that's a Merciless Eviction, exiling all creatures. There's good news and there's bad news to that. Hopefully this gets countered, actually. Oh, that gets Mana Drain. Well, Mana Drain's not the counter that I wanted to see on that. But that does keep our Burnished Heart alive, which is really important. If time and mana are permitting, we can use this Sword of Light and Shadow to keep getting back our Burnished Heart, which sounds like a pretty good plan. So, pretty happy with that counter on the Merciless Eviction, just that Grand Arbiter is going to have a ton of mana. Mitra, God of Harvest, coming into play. So, Grand Arbiter gets 6 colorless mana. Things may potentially get out of control right here. Plays a Pearl Medallion, more cost reduction. Plays an Angel of Jubilation. Players can't sacrifice creatures. That is a problem. We can no longer sacrifice our Burnished Heart. Kind of annoying. And opponent's going to draw a million cards with Recurring Insight. They go up to 10 cards in hand. Now down to 9 after playing a land. So, looks like Grand Arbiter is going to be the target now, because they just drew a whole bunch of cards, and they're causing a lot of problems for us, so... Angel of Jubilation is a card that definitely doesn't see enough play. The ability to stop players from being able to pay life or sacrifice creatures is a really big deal. Especially against, like, almost any black deck. Those are basically two things that are in almost every black deck. Sacking creatures and paying life to do stuff. We have a number of cards in our deck that will get locked out by this Angel of Jubilation. Oh, tough choices here. We've got a Tithe Drinker that we can get down, or we can cast one of our swords. I'm going to go with the Fire and Ice right here, just because I want to try to draw into more lands, eventually. We'll just split the damage up between our opponents. So, Progenitus down to 34, Mitra down to 36. Eureka! Uh-oh. Starting with you, each player may put a permanent card from his or her hand onto the battlefield. Repeat this process until no one puts a card on the battlefield. Well, here we go. Let's find out what everyone's got. There's an Archangel Avacyn. That is a thing. Oh, there's an Elish Norn. That's not great. We'll get down our Gisela. So Elish Norn, at this exact second, is going to take down both of our creatures. We'll get this Alhammaret's Archive down. There's a Consecrated Sphinx. I hope someone has a board wipe. There's a Maelstrom Wanderer. Sword of Light and Shadows next. There's a Kozilek. The good news is that Kozilek should probably be pointing at the Grand Arbiter opponent. We'll get our True Conviction down, and finally get our Tithe Drinker down. Oh, yep, that was bad. Tithe Drinker's just gonna die. Well, hopefully we can get it back with the sword. What is that? Allurin. Oh, any player. Creature spells with converted mana cost 3 or less without paying their mana cost as though they had flash. That's a legacy card. And that is a pretty powerful one. There's some big-time trouble on the board, which is that... So, Progenitus is going to attack into the Grand Arbiter opponent, and Grand Arbiter is getting hit with the Kozilek Annihilator 4, so that should hit them pretty hard. Angel of Jubilation is going to go down. That'll be good if we can get our creatures back. Unfortunately, Avacyn Angel of Hope is coming in on us, but we're just going to have to take that one. Consecrated Sphinx is going to trigger. Soul of the Harvest for Mitra. I'm going to get a Mitra trigger. Recurring Insight is going to rebound. Fortunately, everyone's just about empty on cards, so only going to get to draw 2 additional cards with it. But opponent still has the Consecrated Sphinx, so they will be drawing cards for a while. And even though we have Double Strike with the Sword of Fire and Ice, everything's so big because of the Elish Norn that we can't kill anything. That's a Cyclonic Rift, overloaded. Shut down! Which is no good. Just so not good. There's an Enlightened Tutor. I was excited at the prospect of actually being able to, like, do stuff on our turn. Especially the combination of Alhammaret's Archive with True Conviction, Sword of Fire and Ice, and Light and Shadow. We would have gained double the life, had 2 Sword of Fire and Ice triggers, and drawn 4 cards. It would have been a really cool thing, but it is not to be. So, Grand Arbiter is going to swing in pretty hard at the Progenitus, and rightfully so, they did hit him with an Annihilator trigger. Consecrated Sphinx is going to trigger. We draw a Tithe. Tithe normally very good, but when you have to pay 2 for it, much less good. But we do need the lands, so we're going to have to do that. We'll get a Plateau and a Godless Shrine. Play the Plateau. And pass the turn because Grand Arbiter is still locking us out. Hopefully Progenitus draws into a board wipe. A board wipe is exactly what this game needs right now. And the weird part is now we kind of know what everyone has in their hand, which is very strange. There's a Chromatic Lantern. And Progenitus passes. Consecrated Sphinx is going to trigger again. Sudden Impact is a card that I really want to start running, just to punish people with Consecrated Sphinxes, or people that like to draw way too many cards. Day of Judgment. Oh my god, that is huge. That is so huge. Pact of Negation, are you kidding me? Denied. Oh god. Yeah, that was exactly the card we needed, but Pact of Negation. Sol Ring for the Mitra opponent. Decides to strip mine one of Grand Arbiter's lands. Gotta do what you gotta do. Mitra, you can make up the lands pretty easily, so I understand. Basically anything to slow down the Grand Arbiter opponent at this point. So Grand Arbiter has to pay for the Pact of Negation, and that'll take most of their mana. Mana Crypt for the Grand Arbiter. Propaganda for the Grand Arbiter. And a Windborn Muse. Ugh. So all of the prison effects. We draw a Thought Vessel. We'll play our Godless Shrine untapped. I'm going to play the Thought Vessel right here. Thought about going for the creature, but decided not to. And we will get the... We'll get the Light and Shadow. If we hit anything with the Light and Shadow, then we'll be able to get Licia into play. Intet the Dreamer for the Progenitus opponent. Consecrated Sphinx, drawing our opponent a million cards. Fated Retribution, finally. So Mitra finally sticks a board wipe against the Grand Arbiter opponent and getting rid of the mess of creatures that they had in play. Right now, the turn order's kind of messed up, but I think, does Grand Arbiter untap before we do? Yes. Crap. I don't know what's going on with Magic Online. Players aren't seated in the order of their turns any longer. I don't know why that happened, but it's kind of annoying because you don't always know where you are in the turn cycle. So the good news is that Grand Arbiter has so many cards in hand that they're limited by the amount of mana that they have, which means it'll be really difficult for them to recast Grand Arbiter, because Grand Arbiter is now 6, which is a pretty good chunk of their mana. So they'll be giving up a lot of other plays to get their commander back into play. Spell Tithe Enforcer. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, that player sacrifices a permanent unless he or she pays 1. Basically the same effect as Grand Arbiter, but even worse when they're both on the battlefield. Divining Top for the Grand Arbiter opponent. So Grand Arbiter has to discard. It's like they're discarding some lands. We draw an Exsanguinate. That'll be good eventually. It's not quite the time for that yet. But let's try to get down this Gisela. We will definitely pay the 1. Paying 1. And since nothing else we can really do, we'll equip up the sword. We've got a 6/5 Gisela the Broken Blade with Flying First Strike, Lifelink, and protection from 2 colors. The good news is in the way that the turn orders have played out, we haven't really had to make enemies yet, especially with all the stuff that Grand Arbiter was doing. That's a Maelstrom Wanderer. It's going to cascade twice. Opponent will have to sacrifice a permanent. Sacrifices their Chromatic Lantern. Plays a Wheel of Fortune. I really like the things that were in our hands, so not super excited about that Wheel of Fortune. However, that Wheel of Fortune is probably going to hit the Grand Arbiter really hard. If Grand Arbiter has a counterspell, I wouldn't be surprised to see it. Yep, there's a Spell Pierce. So when someone draws a bunch of cards and then they have to discard down to hand size, the things that are left in their hand are going to be really powerful. And also going to counterspell the Maelstrom Wanderer. So Grand Arbiter just burned 2 counterspells to prevent the wheel and prevent the Maelstrom Wanderer from coming in. Oh, the Maelstrom Wanderer was much safer than the Teferi. So Teferi Temporal Archmage comes into play, and I have lost to this commander too many times. In fact, I don't know that I've ever really seen the Teferi deck lose. So it drives me kind of crazy. Granted, it's not the commander, so may not be as powerful, but still, untapping 4 permanents is very good against an opponent that's trying to tax you out of the game. Mitra coming back into play, and a Solemn Simulacrum. Opponent's going to pay to not have to sacrifice to the Spell Tithe Enforcer. Solemn Simulacrum, going to find a land. So Grand Arbiter untaps. This is unfortunate. Because of the turn order that we're seated in, I would have really liked to have been able to attack into the Grand Arbiter while they were tapped out, but doesn't look like that's going to be the case. And he's going to use a Mystical Tutor. Let's see what awfulness he drags up. Armageddon, of course. At least we have a creature in play. So I think here comes the Armageddon. Yep, Armageddon. At least we've got a threat. Propaganda's still a problem. We need to draw a land. So all the lands are gone. Opponent says, didn't know it was that kind of game. Yep, most definitely is. Oh, you kidding me? So opponent just Cryptic Commanded our Gisela back to our hand. And now there's a Winter Orb, so this game's probably just about over. Spell Tithe Enforcer are going to go into the Teferi. Well, we draw the land that we would have needed to do a whole bunch of awesome things, but it's not going to matter anymore. Pass a turn. Teferi's going to use the plus ability. Opponent does not attack with the Solemn Simulacrum. Grand Arbiter coming back into play. Awesome. Yeah. Probably time to scoop this game up. So, earlier when I was talking about Grand Arbiter not ending the game that quickly, the thing that really kind of sent this game out of control was the Eureka, because it would have taken Grand Arbiter much, much longer to be able to cast all of those things. They just happened to luck out and have the Cyclonic Rift basically make that Eureka one-sided is what happened. And that's really why the game has gotten this far out of control. We draw a Greed. That's not going to be helpful. We need lands. We just need a lot of lands. Land tax would be fantastic. So opponent goes down to 14 on the Mana Crypt. Said they haven't been able to win any flips, so maybe there's a chance that they just die to their own Mana Crypt, since they don't have a lot of power on board currently. Will take them quite a few turns to be able to combat damage any of us out of the game. So Grand Arbiter swinging in at the Teferi. So Teferi goes down, and Progenitus is down to 15. We draw a Luxodon Warhammer, so not helpful. Opponent discards their Kozilek. It's going to shuffle in their graveyard. And the Mitra opponent scoops it up, which is not good. Crap, opponent wins the flip. Was hoping the Mitra opponent would actually swing in with the Solemn Simulacrum. Idyllic Tutor, huh? It might be scoop time now. Future Sight, it's, well, blue. Oh, yeah, they do have enough. Yeah, it's scoop time. So I found this game to be interesting, because it's rare that a game of Commander goes this badly, but I think that there's some things that we can learn from this game. First up is the thing that's out of your control, which is where you sit at the table. In this particular case, we were going last. That means that we were one turn behind everyone else. So that's not something that you have control over, but just know that if you're the player that's going last, you are going to be at a disadvantage from the rest of the table, and that may have an impact on what hand you decide to keep. If you're that last player, having some mana ramp can be really important. We didn't in this game, and we got punished for it pretty hard. The other glaring issue that came up in this game is the fact that this deck list is running very light on removal. So something like Grand Arbiter Augustin really wants you to have something like a Swords to Plowshares or a Path to Exile in your hand, because if we had one of those, this game wouldn't have gone nearly as badly for us, and we would have been able to get some of our things down on time, and actually have some impact in the game. You'll notice most of the cards in my hand are all cards that synergize well with our commander, and I was running all these at the cost of not running as much removal as I should be, and that's definitely where we got punished. So, when you play Commander, some games will go poorly. There's not always something you can do about it, but a lot of times there are small adjustments that you can make that will actually alter the outcome of the game. In this particular case, running more removal in our deck and mulliganing to a hand that has removal would have done a lot for us, as well as keeping a hand that had some mana rocks in it. That'll allow us to actually play cards out of our deck and, like I said, have some impact in the game. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, feel free to comment, like, or subscribe. Thank you for watching.